Hello, hello. Day drinking with David. Back again. Pulling the triple this week. Lots of whiskey to taste and lots of friends all over the world to invite over. Today we are going to be hanging out with the good gentleman, Mr. Stewart Buchanan of the BenRiach company. Let's see if he's getting ready to come on board. I've sent him a little invite. Let's see if he'll come down. And we're going to taste through and talk about the products, taste through one of our single casks, which the first single cask we've done in many, many years. Whiskey Badger, you're like my favorite. Oh, there he is. All right, let's get him on. Okay. Here we go, Mr. Buchanan. Here we go. Okay, from sunny Scotland, Stewart is here. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. How are we doing?
Great to see you, man. It's been too
And
long,
you?
you know?
You're right. You're totally right. Let me adjust this a little bit. See where we go. Yeah, that's not so bad. How's things?
Yeah, everything's good, man. Hanging in there, you know. Spend a lot of time at home and hanging out with the kiddo a lot, which is awesome. Otherwise, you know, drinking a lot. That seems to be sort of on everybody's menu these days. I'm trying to also exercise, but day drinking plus exercise is very complicated. So trying to get the exercise done in the morning. How about you? It's been since last April we met at BenRiach, right? That was a fun day.
Right. Yeah, and again, do you know something? I'll tell you, to be honest, I've never been healthier. I think as much as, I'm out on the road all the time, all over the world, and you always think you're staying healthy, but it's funny when you get back in the one place for more than 2 weeks at one time, how much traveling poundage you must carry around with you, you know?
I know, because you're probably meeting friends all over the world, people that you know and love, and they want to take you out and they want to show you this cocktail bar, and then you go to see, the late night food in this or that city, and you can't say no, it's delicious,
Especially in the US. Especially in the
yeah,
US. I'm blaming you guys.
we like that late night, the late night feast. It's definitely us, and I think like Singapore. I think you get a lot of that too.
Oh yeah.
So it's super fun to see you. I'm so glad we were able to do this sort of stuff. It's would be better in real life, but it's nonetheless pretty exciting. And can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you came to be part of the BenRiach company and
Yep.
yeah.
So just a wee background from myself. I've been production all my days. I come into whiskey back in the early '90s as a young chap with far darker hair back then. And my first distillery was Tobermory. I'm sure you're familiar. Tobermory and Leitcher, the expression. That was my hometown growing up, and really started there back in
You grew up on Mull?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
You been over?
No, I'm desperate to go. It's one of those places I as a Scotch consumer and lover of Scotland, I desperately want to go, but there's so little business for us there that to squeeze in a trip to Mull for a weekend, it doesn't look great.
Although what I will tell you, there's a nice wee root gathering there now, because maybe people go to Islay, then to Oban. There's actually a nice wee West Coast trail, so there's at the Motherton a crossover now that's just off the beaten track there. There's another 2 distilleries, I think, planning up that area, and you can go right up the Skies or even bypass Fort William. So
absolutely.
Definitely a good route.
There should be more reason to get out there. I mean, you have a new distillery on Skye, you have Ardna, Merchant out that way, and then Rasay is also out being built. So there hopefully will be reason to go, and maybe one day, our friends on Mull will sell us a cask or two.
Get over.
they've toyed with the idea, but not as successfully as you, sir, with the wonderful new Oloroso Punchin that you've sent us. So you started in production and at the distillery on Mull, and
started as a stillman, and I think as well what captured me, it was on Mull, small island, we didn't have an engineer as such, so you have to keep yourself busy, and I found myself doing a lot of the engineering work, pumps, valves, boiler, for example, keeping all that maintenance up to scratch, along with another colleague, and that's what I fell in love with, actually, regarding distilleries. It was actually the nuts and bolts and the sounds. If you go to old school distilleries and you hear these noises, the scooshes of steam and the steam traps and the blow off pipes, that's the beating soul. That's the beating heart of a distillery. And to get in amongst that, for me, is awesome. I like getting my hands dirty. But I think that led to a perfect timing also when Billy Walker, I'm sure you're familiar with Billy, when he did buy BenRiach back in 2004. So Billy was actually a production director with Burn Stewart who owned Tobermory, and he had left, and then he had the opportunity to start up BenRiach, and the phone went one day, and within 2 weeks I'd left the lovely harbour town of Tobermory, and I was sleeping in the back of my car in Speyside.
Great, that's awesome. And so you came on in the same role at BenRiach. It
had been sitting empty for a couple of years, so it didn't really need stripped down, put back together again. So we had a great old engineer, Jock, and along with him, we just got it back fit for purpose. It took about maybe 5-6 months, actually, from going up there initially in April, getting everything sorted out, starting up the production late September. So that was a great experience. If you want to know how a distillery works, take it apart and put it together again.
I believe that. Yeah, that's very cool. And of course, you guys did great work over the years, selling some really special old stocks and developing the new product line. And when did you transition into like sales and that side of the business? Was it pretty natural?
Yeah, 2012, and it goes back to, I think, the size we were at the time. I'm sure there was only really 6 of us in the office trying to control the world. And that was actually including a sales and marketing team, production team, ambassadorial team, which we didn't actually have. We just went out as and when. And then as the 3 distilleries obviously gained traction globally, it was Alistair Walker, Billy Sutton, asked me if I would like to just go out on the road full time, and I jumped at the chance. For me, there's nothing better than seeing the happy faces when they've got a glass of our liquid in their hands on the other side of the world. So I jumped at it and haven't looked back since. Great. But funnily enough, what I've just pulled up on my old computer here, or an old file, in that 2012 period when I left production and started the ambassadorial role, my other distillery job was doing the single cask selection and writing the tasting notes for all of these. So I've actually pulled up your old cask. I don't know if you remember the Glendronach 1411 1995.
Oh, yes. Is that the 19 year? Or the
it was a 19-year-old PX again.
Oh, that's a monster.
You also had a bourbon barrel BenRiach 94, cask 41167.
Yes. Wow, you are very well organized. I am impressed. That is incredible. I don't even have those tasting notes anymore. Very, very cool. So, and obviously BenRiach has been your base, but of course Glendronach was part of the package, and this is such a special sort of underappreciated star of the Highlands. Not a Speyside by any means, quite out of the way from that. Although most people wouldn't even guess it, considering considering the quality. And can you tell us a little bit about that distillery and sort of the history and a lot of closures and different, it's amazing that it's still here. Thank God.
And I think that's what I actually love about all 3 of our distilleries. We sit in that lovely triangle in the northeast of Scotland. I'm in Elgin at the moment, so I'm only 3 miles away from BenRiach.
Right.
BenRiach, classic Speyside, as you know, beautiful, all the sweet honey notes, big rich orchard fruits, classic in its character for Speyside. And then Glendronach's maybe 40 minutes drive and into that Aberdeenshire area. And you know, we're very lucky, I think, as well, when you can only be respectful to the history, not only of the long history of production and distillery, but the people that were laying down the barrels that are now we're using in our custodianship. So the cask policy there has been fantastic all through these years. And I think that's one of the major things with, if you look at whiskey history, actually, if you go back decades and decades and decades, you'll see peaks and troughs of booms and busts, you know, and sometimes cask quality will suffer from that. You know, whether you have to save some money, so you go to a secondary barrel, or, you know, your cask policy will move around.
Because the wood, for a long time, has been such a huge part of the cost of production.
Yeah.
And I wonder, when you guys came in to Glendronach and BenRiach, was there a wholesale audit of the stocks? Did you guys go through and say, okay, good, bad, let's recast this? How was that? How was that warehouse management? That sounds like a huge job and an awesome job, but what did that look like?
No, you're right as well. You know, there's a lot of investigation has to go into the warehousing you have. We were lucky, which wouldn't happen in today's age, I don't think. I don't think you could buy a distillery today and buy stock going back to the 60s. That's not going to happen ever again. You know, we've captured almost that last
Billy
distilleries.
Billy did it again.
Yeah. And he's just got that Midas touch. He can, I don't know, he must just get that's the tongue can just get casks from people, no problem. So very lucky. But again, you know, you look at your sheets, you look at your cask detail on paper, it doesn't tell you anything apart from the age and the cask style. You really have to get into every single barrel and assess them, grade them, mark them up. Then look and see what you can bring for your core, for example, create that core range. But yeah, sampling is a huge part of the day-to-day job, not only for Rachel, but even our warehouse teams pulling these samples. So every single cask we need to get into. And that's where we can discover little gems like your private barrels.
Yeah, and we're so excited to have that opportunity again. Obviously, you know, part of what made Glendronach such an incredible brand and distillery was you guys, you know, right off the bat started offering these single casks, which is something, you know, one, because you had aged stock, which nobody did. That was something that was becoming less available to us, you know, in that sort of 2012 plus, you know, and beyond period. But I just want to get into briefly a little bit more on the history of Glendronach. Can you tell us a little bit about how that distillery sort of changed hands and where it is today? It's a pretty interesting story.
It is, and we are lucky actually, because again, right back to 1826, you know, the founding of the distillery by James Allardyce, who we named the 18 after. You know, we've actually got written history going right back to that. You know, we've got personal details, personal letters, communications going back. So it's great to almost bring the distillery to life there. Unfortunately, Mr. Allardyce himself didn't last long. I think he was maybe enjoying his whiskey more than selling it. So he actually he did go bankrupt, probably mid 1830s. Then it fell into the hands of a gentleman called Walter Scott. And we've actually got more archives to dig up in him. There's great archives in Aberdeen University on his background. We still need to get in and access a lot of those. But I think that's where he owned it for the majority of the time through the 1800s. And I think that timing also was when sherry casks were coming into the fore in the industry. You know,
really?
If you look at 1826, you'd have been losing a lot of different barrels. Port casks would have been there, Madeira, Marsala, you know, other fortified wine styles, Bordeaux, Clarets. You know, the cask collection then would have been very different. Well, it's actually going back now, actually. You think about the wine finishes that we do. But the sherry cask didn't really start to gain control of the warehouses until about the 1840s. And from there on in, they just went with it.
Is that because of the drinking habits in the UK, and then people were just drinking more and more sherry, and that's why you had access to this cask, or had somebody had everybody sort of agreed, okay, this makes the best Scotch? Was kind of chicken and the egg here, I guess, but
let's say a bit of both. Let's say a bit of both. And you got to remember that if you look back in time, you look at a lot of distillery owners, they had also a very close relationship with blenders who were in fact wines and spirits merchants.
Of course.
So actually the group of people involved were very tight, and they would have access to casks all over. You've got to also remember things like my pronunciation is terrible, but the Floraxia, the grape disease through France, which again replenished the vines of the red wine industry, for example. Maybe that's another great reason where people move to sherry, and again that cask takes hold throughout that period of the disease of the vine in France. There's so many things, isn't there, that you don't think about.
Well,
what I will say,
and all these industries are interconnected.
Yeah. What I will say is, and it's something we say today, and Rachel says it well, you always look for the synergy between the spirit and the cask. The cask and the DNA of the spirit has to be in perfect balance. And I think that's also why, not only going back to the 1840s, but historically, the sherry cask has been used at Glendronach, because this new make spirit from the still has got all these beautiful notes, even in the spirit, that we're going to start reaping from the cask. So if I could just take you through this a wee second, that's the new make spirit, about 68.5 ABV. Now, cleric, white dog, whatever you may want to call it, moonshine, you put that in your hand, wee scoosh there, let that alcohol evaporate a little bit. That first initial smell, blackberries, blueberries, brambles. Glendronach is the valley of the brambles.
Right.
All these fruits are already captured there, And then I'm feeling a stickiness, an oiliness, always tacky. Again, that lovely silky viscosity that it brings from that highland region. But also there's more than the fruits. There's even sandalwood, leather, tobacco leaves. These are all notes that you normally associate with sherry cask maturation.
Right.
And yet we've got them already there in the spirit. So I think when you look at that synergy between cask and barrel, you could not ask for a more perfect partnership to go on with the maturation. And I could bore you with how these flavours develop in the stills, but we can touch on that later, possibly.
Well, you guys had malt floors running until pretty late, 96, something like that, 95, 96. And the distillery had a refurb, in the 60s and 70s, when they built the windows, right?
65, 66-ish, around about that point. Basically double capacity from 2 to 4 stills. Very much maintained the same machinery, just adding additional 2 stills. If you look back at our mash tun, for example, well, another wee bit of geekiness here. Out of the, whatever it is now, 126, 130 distilleries in Scotland, there's only around 15 traditional mash tuns left in the industry. Because again, when people modernise or automate or start from scratch, they move into a more modern mash tun, even just that first vessel. We're lucky, out of the 15 remaining traditional mash tuns, we've got 3 of them, one in each of our distilleries. You look at these old, cast iron, copper dome, they're perfect. Wood washbacks we still maintain. Still shapes were replicated, just adding another set. So that was a double expansion in the 60s. You're right, the floor maltings did cease operations due to the volume. It only makes about 8 tons per cycle. So again, just not economical to operate there.
You're still going in BenRiach, though. I think that's really interesting. That
we started that back up again. We started that back up again. 2012, we got that up and running again. So that's fantastic to have a small amount of volume going through that each year, maintaining that history. But the other thing, I suppose the latest thing that happened at Glendronach was the removal of the coal fires, taking away the direct firing into what is a circulating
steam coil.
It's actually an external heater we use, which heats the beer. So that's about the only thing that's changed. But I think when you look at the people ask me, what the flavour changes has been over the decades when these changes happen. But I actually think that Highland style is so big and so strong and so robust. Even these little changes that have happened haven't taken away from that big Highland character. It's always there.
The malt is particularly oily, I think. And is it? Yeah. Every time I talk to somebody in Scotland, they're always saying like, pretty much everybody's like, oh, it's quite a long fermentation. You're like, 48 hours. I mean, those guys did 110 hours. You know. So what are the fermentation times? Do you remember on that on Glendronach? Is it?
Yeah.
I remember being pretty long, right? Or medium?
Yeah, and that is, I would say medium, because there's two things that happen through fermentation, and some you want, some you don't want,
right?
Basically. So BenRiach's got the long, well, BenRiach and Glenglassaugh are very long, up to about 100, anywhere between 100 and 115 hours. But in length of fermentation, basically the esters you create are making, the acids you're going to create actually are going to make these more citrusy notes. Now, we don't want to go into these notes with Glendronach, so we keep it back to about 60 or 80 hours, making sure we keep that depth. So, and that's what I like about the three distilleries at work. You know, they even from the outset, they move in different directions.
Right.
BenRiach goes da-da-da-da-da-da. Glendronach goes da-da-da-da-da-da. So everything in Glendronach are looking for the bass notes, even as they, even in the
well, that's a function of the lactobacillus. You know, after alcoholic fermentation, we never talk about this in single malt, but there is a lactic acid step in single malt production, unless you're really totally sealing off. But even then, it's impossible to really keep that side out of it. And so those acids will be crucial in the ultimate character, because they interact during distillation and fermentation in such a complicated way.
I think I love talking about even the esters. Not going to go too detailed into the production, but even the esters are only that molecular activity between the acids and the alcohol, which then start creating all these fruit compounds, you know. So you can really hone in and capture that moment where you're driving flavors in different directions. Glendronach's always dark. Even the mash tun, we talk about coffee notes in Glendronach, espressos, double espresso. But even the mash tun is like a cafetiere making a double espresso. You know, even at that stage, the barley combination with water, we're making a double espresso extraction. You know, it pushes these dark flavors forward.
Very cool, man. Well, so let's talk a little bit about the whiskeys themselves. You know, you guys have had some really incredible success over the years, and even more so recently. The 12 at our shop is literally every staff member recommends it. Someone says, "Oh, I like single malt. Have you had Glendronach?" No. Boom. There you go. You cannot spend a better $50 in Scotland. And
you're right.
And that's a whiskey that I think has really stood the test of time. I think there are a couple of things that make it special as a flagship malt for a good Highland distillery, and those are the slightly higher proof, non-chill filtration, the use of multiple high quality sherry casks, and then that harmonious blend of the three wood types. Can you tell us a little about this whiskey here?
Yeah, again, as you say, I think it covers every box, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, actually, when I go to America, I do seem to find it's a 12 that people maybe who haven't experienced single malt will associate more with maybe an older, richer American style, older bourbon with more time and oak. So it's got that richness, that unctuous nature, but it's also very easy to drink. You know, a lot of people think that all whiskey is going to be smoky or they're going to get that aggression, but the balance in here is just phenomenal. And as much as we're using the Oloroso, the PX, you know, the Oloroso will be the backbone that will hold maybe the freshness and the brightness and some of the wood spices in there, and then you've got the PX. In some cases, PX can offer heavier notes, more into the chocolates and the dark chocolates, and a richer fruit note. But I think also the PX and the spirit that we have here does keep a lightness, almost in the apricot note, without getting overpowered for the PX. PX. It can hold a PX, I think, and still remain Glendronach without just becoming a big PX, cask. So we're very lucky at the balance here. And again, Rachel, bringing both of these together, perfect balance between the two.
Tell me, what's the process for the creation of the 12-year? Is it 10 years in bourbon and then into Oloroso, or are we blending full term Oloroso with PX and bourbon? Like, you guys don't do a ton of finishing. I mean, in the core range.
That's right. And again, when we took over, we were looking at 85% was full matured sherry on day one that we purchased. There was a smaller bit of bourbons there that we moved straight away back in 2008 into either Oloroso or PX. More so PX, because if you think about the American oak flavors, the vanillas, the toffees, they're more akin to the PX flavors than maybe to the Oloroso, where you want to remain spice forward, tannins in there. So yeah, we did a bit of re-racking. Now I don't even know. You think about it. This is 12-year-old. We bought the distillery 12 years ago. These casks are now starting to become our own filled barrels, maturation. Which then that's a great point when you know that you have a control in everything you've pushed through. So I'm not going to say there's not a little bourbon element in here, but if the casks that were basically the ones that were moved straight away, boom, when we bought the distillery into the sherry cask.
Okay, so you're moving away from the bourbon element in the 12 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we have done all the way through. I would say normally, we're filling 80% sherry barrels all the way through. We're filling port casks as well. Few claret barrels hiding in there. So bourbon's not the focus as far as some distilleries when they use sherry maturation, some of them need that time in bourbon, or some of them they maybe can't hold the sherry for the full maturation and have to split that maturation. It goes back to the DNA of that spirit. That spirit can handle long-term sherry maturation without being overpowered. So, we are just lucky.
It's the same idea in wine. If you look at the great first growths and Lafite, whatever, they're putting these these are what they call 200% new oak, meaning fermentation new oak and then transferred to aging in new oak. But you've got these hyper concentrated, complex base material, and the resulting wine, of course, it has oak flavor to it, but it's not oaky per se because the wine itself stands up to it. And you need a spirit in the same way to stand up to a big flavor like the sherry.
And you know yourself, first fill bourbons, you use bourbon barrels, you're gonna rip out all the spices of the spirit. You're gonna push all the elevated toffees, caramels, butterscotch notes. So even I think when you taste Glendronach, you know that it doesn't hold it's got a little bit of that, but it's all about these spicier notes going forward, and the darker, deeper notes. So even tasting it, you can tell that there's more full-term sherry maturation in here. I think the most complex thing is actually that balance between Oloroso and PX. Making sure you get that balance right. And again, Billy before, Rachel now, I've just nailed this one every time.
I'll have to change the notes. I think we talk about the bourbon being a larger portion of the blend. I'll have to readjust our
You're not wrong though, but if you go back historically, you will even see on a detail in the bottle, it does refer to American oak. So that was about, goodness, maybe 8 years ago. Because again, that was historical,
probably when we wrote the notes on this product, so I'll have to reevaluate. Well, it still tastes awesome, and it's just such a go-to for our customers and our staff. And one thing I've always loved to do is throw the 12-year into like blind tastings, because it's sort of it's one of those. It's a bit of a creeper, it's not one of these like smack you over the head, but there's so much there. It's so easy drinking, and people just can't believe it when you reveal and you're like, that's $50. Are you kidding?
And it doesn't fade. I think that's the thing with Glendronach. It holds up. after sip, you know, or even, you know yourself, you open up a big sherry like that, it will even develop in glass as
Yeah.
that oxygen goes in.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it doesn't just die after the first glass, you know, it just keeps on giving and giving all the time.
What we like.
There's a funny thing that I always say to people when they taste Glendronach is, you know, these big sherry casks, we know that. You taste it, and I take the tiniest sip in my tongue, you know, just move it around. The craziest thing in your palate with Glendronach is you can never push the flavours to the tip of your tongue. They're always right at the back. They're always mid to back palate. All these weights just sit at the back. You can never push them forward. And when I do a tasting and tell people that, they're always like, you see their faces contorting, trying to almost push that flavour forward, but you can't do it. It's always these rich, dark, deep flavours at the back.
Cool. Well, and now on to our one of our best sellers, obviously winning one of the most prestigious awards, Best in Show, the Glendronach 15, the re-release, because obviously as things go in Scotland, distillery closes and then the whiskey becomes scarce. So here's the 15. This is a blend of PX and Oloroso, I believe, as well. And this is this is really Rachel's this is Rachel's touch, right? I mean, this is where she really has come onto the team and shown how special her abilities and palate and potential is. Tell us about this whiskey.
Yeah, and you can imagine her. I always joke with her sometimes, saying, you know, inside, how was the nerves when you did bring it together? Because there's a lot hinging on this, you know, because a lot of people, you know, referring to that old 15, the plateau it was on, to try and live up to that is like big boots to fill there. But honest to goodness, how fantastic that now is it to see it winning the awards in San Francisco, you know, top class. So she's done a good job. And the only thing she's done to put her own thumbprint on it is bring that little bit of PX in there. You know, historically it was more Oloroso forward. I will say, actually, probably the old 15, there was more inconsistency, let's say, from bottling to bottling. You've got to remember, all Oloroso barrels are very unique. I'll talk about this later, cask to cask. I think we found with the old 15, 2 bottlings almost back to back were never the same. You know, they were balanced, but they were very unpredictable, let's say.
Yeah.
So bringing the new production together, the consistency we've got here now is going forward is fantastic. A lot of people also think that Oloroso, the PX element is always going to bring that sweetness. But as I mentioned, the Glendronach can hold it. It doesn't just turn it into chocolate sauce. You know, it holds it well. And actually, I think what Rachel's done here is expose more of the fruits that PX can bring. You know, PX can bring some lovely, rich fruits in there. And almost, again, referring to the Valley of the Brambles. I think that's what Rachel's always going back to, trying to capture the Valley of the Brambles, the Valley of the Blackberries in every one of the expressions.
Well, I so appreciate that, because that, I mean, gosh, that drive into Glendronach is one of the very best. And you can just imagine, you know, it was founded in 1826, but you just imagine that they've been distilling in that little hollow for quite a bit longer than that. I really particularly like the 15, and I'm wondering, you know, people were a bit worried. The 18 coming up, will that also see a break like the 15 did, or are they going to be able to stretch the production?
No, I think we've almost bridged that gap already. You know, again, that was 2008 that we bought the distillery, so we've got good stocks. We've got, you know, the age statements are coming through of that period. So we've got to be sensible. You know, we've got to make sure we put it around the world accordingly to maintain it.
Right.
But if we're careful with it, we can make that last until then the production comes of age. So yeah, we're quite confident that it will remain.
Great news. Yeah, because there was a bit of a row on this side of the pond when that 15 left, and people were just going nuts for it. You saw the prices go wild, and it was, thank God you brought it back, because that's and that it's just so special. And of course, you know, you guys have a full range all the way up, the 18, 21. I mean, there's not a bad whiskey coming out of that distillery. But
No.
for me, the most exciting things are, of course, the single casks, the very high end magical ones. And then and of course I'm partial to this one, so I'll take a drink with you now that I've watched you feel. Can't leave you to drink by yourself. So this is our first single cask from the Glendronach company since, gosh, when was that? 19 years sent over. That was 2014, 13, 14.
Yeah.
And we couldn't be happier. An Oloroso Punchin, so a very, very large barrel. There you go.
My little sample. Actually, I did have a wee dram out of this earlier just to, get my palate ready for it.
Yeah.
I got a sample from the office. But yeah.
Wow. So much going on there. So we selected this with Rachel last spring.
Right.
After seeing you at BenRiach, raced over. And, it was tough. It was a tough choice. It was this or an 11-year-old PX. But I don't know, something about the Punchin. I mean, they're not as dark, they're not as fruity maybe as you said, but the word that I get that you said earlier that I find is a through line, particularly with this cask, is that sandalwood note, which is very much there in this particular product. Tell us a little bit about the single cask program. Is this widely available, or it seems pretty limited, right?
It is, and I think we were very, I think even back in the day, we were one of the only distilleries offering that single cask program, and we're still one of the very few distilleries that are. I think we did have to take a little break just to kind of gather our thoughts a little bit, you know what I mean? Because the temptation is the sales guys go out and just sell. But then back in the day, Billy was like, what you do, where's all my barrels going, So we did have to sit back, rethink, look at that entrance we have, and then, we probably took about a year break. We had about a 2-year break maybe of single cask, just letting Billy back then look through the warehouses, assess the warehouses, and then brought that program back again as we do now. But the single cask program is fantastic to offer, something that's coming directly from a warehouse is an amazing experience. And I think especially with the Oloroso, that's where you get such diversity in barrel. A lot of people, I'm sure you're a big fan of sherry. I'm sure even just drinking sherry. And I do urge people to go out and drink sherry and taste sherry, because then you can understand what happens, I think, in barrel. Because Oloroso is not a big, sweet, fruity sherry,
No.
Oloroso is going to be dry, it'll be fresh, it'll be sharp, it'll be citrus even.
Well, this is the biggest misconception of sherry, is that it is a sweet product, but in fact, everything but the sweetened ones and the PX ones are extremely dry. The flavor, that unique flavor coming from oxidation over years and years of maturation.
The wood.
There you go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Is there?
And that's the thing. That's what makes, I think, the Oloroso so unique, because most of this concentration of flavor is coming from the spirit driving into the wood, then back out again. And as you know, every tree is different, every cask different, every stave on the cask is unique. Every cask, from one to the other neighbouring barrel will be chalk and cheese. Do you know what I'm getting from this? I don't know if I wasn't getting it in my first sip earlier today, but what on my nose I'm getting, maybe it's after the sweetness of the first two. It's almost that marzipan thing I'm getting just in the nose, which is a nice that Oloroso, I think, again. And even another note I look for, and I urge people to look for it, a good Oloroso barrel should always be orangey in some ways. It can be light orange blossom, it can be rich orange marmalade, or caramelized, dehydrated orange, but there's always this wee orangey note that runs through Oloroso. And when I was doing tasting notes, always one of the notes I would look for in Oloroso is how that oranginess comes across.
maybe it's because it's breakfast here still, but this has definitely got that marmalade-y thing,
Yeah.
and a little bit of chocolate, which makes me feel like I've been cheeky and put some chocolate on my breakfast toast with the marmalade. But there you
Was
go.
there a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
chocolate?
Nutty hazelnut as well, a little Nutella quality. It's I mean, just such a killer cask, and gives you such a great sense of the quality, and also just the fact that 2008, this is your own production, and this is Billy's production, and then and the system hasn't changed. That's a question that someone raised earlier. Obviously with the change in ownership, there are questions from connoisseurs and people are paying attention. Have you seen any changes in terms of production or practices whatsoever at the distillery?
No.
With the new no, that's
The only thing that's changed, I
business
think,
as
only
usual for
thing
you.
that's changed is Rachel.
Right.
What I would possibly say, Billy, cask is pivotal to maturation, and Billy would spend the biggest money on barrels. But that's where the secret is. You've got to spend the money to make that product. But
Yeah.
another great thing I love about Brown-Forman is, you look at BenRiach, which is more classically matured in bourbon barrels or virgin oak, American oak. So if you think about all the bourbon barrels that we're getting for BenRiach, they're coming from in-house, best quality barrels. That's actually the same as Glenglassaugh. So in fact, we're actually saving money on having in-house bourbon barrels, giving us more money to spend in the sherry cask. So it's a win-win situation there. So
Great.
maintaining quality is the main thing.
And do you have any sense of whether this is? I mean, we know that most sherry is filled into American oak. Do you have any sense of whether this would be European or American? I have this sort of feeling that it might be American, but I can't tell.
No, these
no record of that.
yeah, we do, and the people we work with, and even more so now. That's maybe one thing with Rachel. We only buy Spanish oak, so Spanish oak has always been there. But sometimes there might be a bit of European oak, but now going forward, it's all Spanish oak we're filling. And again, looking at that wood structure, far more impacting with the tannins coming in there from the Spanish oak. But another wee thing I do when people come to Glendronach, well, health and safety doesn't like me doing it, but I do have a wood saw, and I have a American oak cast stave, European oak cast stave, and a Spanish oak cast stave. And even just taking a saw, you can feel the density and the structure of that oak. And when it comes to the Spanish oak, it's almost more open, far more porous. So by looking at the barrel, you can tell Spanish or American oak or European. So mostly, I think.
But you get a stronger tannin for sure, though, right? That's something the European oak always hits you with that power, and they seemed. I mean, just from my only experience is looking at the whiskeys that I'm buying. They seem to throw more color than the American oak, but maybe I can't tell if that's a function of the oak itself or the fact that Spanish and European oak would have held the sherry longer because maybe they're more expensive for the bodegas to buy, and so they're going to use them for the older, better wines. It's a complicated thing. You got to really get in there.
Yeah, and you're right. Again, the American oak is cheaper than sourcing Spanish oak as we do today. Even the sherry manufacturers don't particularly like using sherry cask as Spanish oak because they are so expensive. But also, tell you another thing, the American oak is more stable. So if you're rolling around barrels, what you get in European oak or Spanish oak is it even tends to splinter or fracture because of the shaping of, and also you get delamination internally sometimes. So they're a bit more vulnerable, let's say, whereas sherry and American oak a bit more robust, again, with the density of that wood. But I think as soon as you can taste the tannins, you know you've moved away from America. When you get that dryness, you've moved into Europe or Spain. And then depending on how that dryness comes across, you can then start wondering whether it's actually Spanish oak or European oak. I would say Spanish oak for me is I always get it a little bit deeper. The tannins a little bit smokier even. You'll find sometimes in the old 18, for example, although it's not a peated whiskey, you do get a wee wisp of smoke in there. And I think if you analyse the oak itself, there is a higher natural phenolic value in Spanish oak than there is in other oak. So you start to pull these things from the oak as well. But the casks as well, that's what I love about looking through a warehouse and actually doing these selections. They're so, everyone is so individual and so unique. I don't think you, especially Oloroso, from barrel to barrel to barrel, it does what it wants to do. You can't control it. You can't repeat it. They really, truly are kind of one-off expressions.
Well, it gives you an idea of how difficult someone like Rachel's job is to take these totally disparate flavors that the casks create, and then to say, okay, we need this 12-year to taste the same as the last time we made a batch. It's I mean, that's why they're called master blenders, and I think it's certainly the most important job in the I guess these master blenders or whatever they are called in terms of the brand of the whiskey, because it's fun to have single casks, but people want to be able to pick up the 12 and know what it tastes like before they're going to buy it because they bought it last time, and it's not as straightforward as it sounds. It's a complicated game.
You're right, and that is the art of the master blender, as you say. It really is, and especially when you're dealing with such long, mature sherry expressions. I'm not saying it's easier to start in bourbon for 8 years then move to sherry for 4, but it probably is easier. But, when
because you have so much more control.
Yeah.
And I think there's a uniformity to bourbon casks that doesn't exist when you're buying wines from casks that held wine from various bodegas or at various ages, and all these nuances of oak type, Spanish, Euro, American, blah 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 blah. It's a complicated world. You got to give the respect where it's deserved. Well, this has been super cool, Stewart. Can you tell us a little bit about anything fun planned for Glendronach or any of the lineup coming this year? Any little previews or staying the course as planned?
I'm trying to think what we've got. I tell you what's just been kind of, it's something that we released as a small limited expression, which then gained fantastic notoriety, and we did have more in the warehouses. But the port casks are working extremely well. So we've got a port release now, Portwood. It is using the sherry that's sherry then moving into port, and
port
going
finish.
back.
Okay.
Oh, beautiful. And looking at the fruit dynamic we're looking for, the red berries are there as well. It's almost more wild berries, fantastic depth, beautiful bronze colour. So look out for the port casks. The Portwood is just called Portwood.
Cool. I don't think I've tasted any Glendronach in port. I'm trying to think if there's any. I know we've seen some BenRiach in port for sure, and anything coming from that distillery this year. I know we're looking at single casks, which I'm very excited for.
Well, keep your eye out. I tell you, I can't give too much away on BenRiach, but I am privy to the casks that are the single barrels that are available for the US. They are just the top class barrels from US, and some different little gems in there as well. So there's a few surprises in that bunch.
I saw a cheeky little couple of interesting things. I mean, that's the fun thing about BenRiach is like, man, these guys make whiskey different every day. It feels like there's so much going on there.
Yeah, there is. Another thing, again, I don't know if you guys had, was the batches. We're in batch 8 at the moment. I'm sure you see a wee change of label here.
Yeah.
The casting. So batch 8, batch 9 would normally have been in the fall. I don't know how that's going to change, obviously, with COVID, etc., depletions.
Yeah.
But batch 9 will come as and when, if anything gets back to normal a little bit.
Let's hope so. That's always one that we love. Those cask strength small batches are just such good bang for your bucks, and that's the case across the entire lineup. And hopefully next time we'll be enjoying a dram together in just outside of Huntley in that beautiful little valley of the Brambles together.
Valley of the Brambles.
They
definitely. You're always welcome, and hopefully I'll go over and see you guys again as well. I was supposed to be over last month, but that got put back. But as soon as I could travel, actually the US will be my first place to get to once I get on the road. So,
Stewart, I can't wait to do late night tacos with you on the street. I know we'll end up there and try and gain back a couple more of those pounds you've been losing at home. But it's such a pleasure to see you, man. And please send our best to everybody, the team over there, Rachel especially. And we look forward to another great year of BenRiach and Glendronach. Despite all that's going on, we're still loving those whiskeys. And we truly appreciate your incredible expertise and your generosity with your time. So thank you so much.
No problem. Well, thank you, David. And hope all you guys out there are well and enjoy your whiskey. So, Slán Java.
Slán Java.
Cheers.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. We will see you next week. All right. Ciao.